Sunday morning cold, eyes on the score, touchdown dance ball, craving for more. Friends are calling, trades are on fire. Rookies falling, championship desire. Fantasy football fever, chasing the dream. Top of the leaderboard, we're the winning team.
Welcome into the Fantasy Football Healers program. We have a special guest host with us tonight. That's right, Colton Palmer. He's back, baby.
I'm back. Feeling better than ever. Finally got some time to chill out, getting settled into the house here and back in Illinois. That's the home state now for this podcast. It's no longer split. We're about 10 minutes apart from each other. So you guys might be hearing some in-person action here soon.
Some could say that we're in the heart of the nation.
Isn't it like the heart of Illinois, too? It's like the heart of Illinois fair. That's where we're at.
We are in the heart of Illinois. We're in the heart of the nation, and we're in the hearts of all of our viewers and listeners. So thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Healers program. You can find me at FF Healers and at FF Captain 22 on Twitter X. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. And Colton, how about you kind of share with us some of your adventures here as you moved from Colorado to Illinois?
Yeah, man, it was a whirlwind. We kind of found out my wife is expecting our third child now, and we decided it's time to move back to family. So within like 2 or 3 months, we found a house, packed up, moved across country. I flew back to finish out work, and then I drove back again. It's been a whirlwind, man. It has been an insane year. Haven't missed any fantasy football though, luckily. I've been having it up while I'm packing in the background. So I've got stuff flowing, juices flowing in my head, thinking about all the fantasy and craziness that happened this year. I'm just glad to be settled, and I told my wife this is it. We're never moving again. This is the house we die in. I don't care. I'm done. I'm done doing it. This is it. Love it or hate it. But luckily we love our house. So.
Yeah, I told my wife the same thing when we moved from Arizona to Illinois. I said, we're moving once. Let's find the house that we're looking for, and we're never moving again. And since then, it seemed like everyone was moving out of the state of Illinois. I would make the joke saying we would be the only people in the entire state of Illinois when everyone starts to move out because we aren't moving anywhere.
Yeah,
so welcome. Now I at least have a companion in Illinois.
It'll be you and me, just stuck here in the center of Illinois, but that's okay. We'll still have fantasy football to talk about. So.
Well, we want to wish you congratulations on your growing family. I anticipate that you listen to a lot of the Fantasy Football Healers program while on the drive from Colorado all the way back here to Illinois.
Twice, once in a U-Haul, and then 2 weeks later, I did it in my little car. So yeah, I listened to. I tried to listen. I probably got through like 90%. But sometimes on those drives, man, I need something other than just a voice. I needed some upbeat music. So, but I got through.
Yeah.
I listened to most of them.
I did what I could with trying to hold up the program here while you were gone. You were definitely missed.
Hey, you did great, man. I'm proud of you. You've carried us to this point. I'm ready to help you out now. I owe you like at least 40 hours of work at this point.
It's such a strongly paid position here.
Maybe we can find you a good physical therapist to help you out with all those back problems from carrying the team here.
My back has been hurting since August, so I've been trying to work on it. So, Colton, you had said that you've been, you haven't missed a beat here with fantasy football. How have your playoffs commenced and completed?
It was a tough season for me this year. I have one league that I'm extremely competitive in. Everything was looking good. I came in as a fifth seed. That league got extremely competitive. We implemented a max points for rule for draft pick selection. So all these people that were tanking now were fighting, and so it made it really competitive. I came in as the fifth seed, winning my division. Everything was looking good. I won week 1 of the playoffs. I head into week 2. Everything's looking good at the beginning of the week, and then Jalen Hurts gets hurt, unfortunately, which kind of tanked my team down. It's hard to come
Hurts
back.
hurt your team.
Hurts hurt my team, and I'm sure he hurt a lot of teams out there. Luckily, I had James Cook, Jonathan Taylor, T. Higgins carry my team. I was looking good. I'm running in the 180s. And unfortunately, my opponent had Brian Thomas Jr., had a couple of other players just absolutely go off, and I missed the championship by 4 points. So just because Jalen Hurts only got me 4. And then the following week, my team decides to do me good again. And I beat pretty much everyone. I beat every single person in the league in the championship week, but unfortunately, I was fighting for third. So I would have won the championship if it wasn't for Hurts going down early on me there, which is a big bummer. It is, because just wanted to really seal it in with the championship, but unfortunately I settled for third. But I mean, I'm just happy to make another year of the playoffs and go into another year of dynasty football, and excited to talk about it again.
We're going to circle back to Jalen Hurts as he affected a number of my leagues also. But before we do that, I had a private conversation with you when you first moved back in Illinois. And I thought this was a really interesting topic, and I think we need to share this. Some of these leagues are having problems with teams that are tanking and trying to get early picks. And you had come up with something as commissioner of one of your leagues on how to reduce the tanking. And do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we had some guys that were on the cusp of being, playoff teams. Like they could have easily have been in the playoffs. And they decided that they didn't really stand a chance against some of the juggernauts there in the playoffs. So they probably would have ended up fourth, fifth, maybe sixth, around that. So they decided they were just going to bench all their really good players. So they were benching people like Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans, like these star players that should be in, no question, every single week. Like people you don't bench. Jamar Chase, I think, was benched at one point. So I kind of went to me and my co-commissioner, and we were talking it out about how to kind of get it done. And I was just scrolling on good old Twitter. I think it was still Twitter back then when I came up with this. And like just there's similar topics, and someone had brought up max points for, so I did some searching, and Sleepers makes it super simple. But max points for is, it's essentially that if you were to put your best team out there on the line week in and week out, it almost kind of like a best ball situation, that's how many points you would accumulate. So, you can go ahead and bench Jamar Chase and your best players to lose that game, but it's not going to help your draft pick selection anymore by benching them, because, it's the points would still go for your max points. So therefore, it gave all these teams that were, not trying to win, they were really trying to rebuild and everything, it gave them a reason to kind of put their best players in. And it really made a big difference in this league. So, I mean, a lot of these guys were upsetting the 1 and 2 seeds and the 3 and 4 seeds. And like, it was a big change for what we were doing and kind of what we were used to. Cause we were used to, like, my division was so weak because all these guys were trying to rebuild. So I was getting 6 free wins because they were just tanking. So now this new implementation has made it much more competitive. It's very fun. A lot of guys have responded well and actually truly enjoy the league and having the max points for, especially since there's no tanking now.
Yeah, I think I thought it was great. We actually just are setting up a poll now in one of our leagues to see if that actually commences, to change the rules, to see if we can actually have the max points for the bottom 6 teams for the toilet bowl, and then the rest of the teams can actually like play it forward to see if they can win the toilet bowl to try and get maybe half their cash back. But it's not looking good on this poll, but I really like your suggestion, and we'll just keep seeing if this is a possibility for either this league or some of my other leagues. I'm going to touch on some of my outcomes for fantasy football here in 2024. I'll start with the first dynasty fantasy teams that we have, and this one's going into it was the 7th season for the Game of Thrones League. And in week 16, I also had a Jalen Hurts problem. Jalen Hurts I had starting over Lamar Jackson, over Patrick Mahomes. If you look back, that it was hard to, but I benched Lamar Jackson as he was playing Pittsburgh. He doesn't generally play well against Pittsburgh. And so I was like, it's hard to bench him. I think it was like a weird night too. It wasn't like a Thursday night football game or something. And I just, maybe it was a Wednesday. Regardless, it just had some bad feels. Patrick Mahomes against Houston. I was like, I don't know. Houston's defense. Oh, look at this. Jalen Hurts against Washington. That could be a shootout with Daniels. So I thought, I thought Hurts would be the option. So I went with Hurts, 4.54 points. I was starting to run out of running backs as the season was going on. I actually had to play Etienne in my running back spot. He gave me 5.7 points. Ugh. Trey McBride gives me a dud, one dud out of the whole year. He gives me 5 points. I'm thinking, oh God, Colton, I don't think I'm going to make it through the semifinals for this league. And my team has been a more of a juggernaut in this in this league, and there's a lot of teams and stuff that have been kind of like wanting me to lose because of how good the team is, but it always seems that the playoffs get me one way or another. Well, Colton, I made it past the semifinals. I ended up winning 108 to 103, pushes me over to the finals, and I'm like, I need a running back because, again, I don't want to play ETN. So I played Breece Hall and Tracy, both of which scored me less than 10 points. So not a great start there. I attempted to pay a first and a second for Chase Brown, who I can't stand, but let's face it, he's been playing very hot and he doesn't have any competition in the backfield. That team declined my first and second round pick for Chase Brown in a very loaded running back class. And I was like, okay, well, what else? I'm not offering any more for Chase Brown. He's not the type of running back that I try and go for. So I just kind of played it forward. I played McBride this week. Gives me 30 points. Thank you, McBride. Played Mike Evans, 29.7 points. Ravens defense, 18 points. I decided to, I had to bench Hurts because he wasn't playing. I decided to play the future MVP in Lamar Jackson. He gave me almost 30 points. At this point, you're thinking, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? Well, I'll tell you what went wrong. I played Kai Fairbairn. He gave me 0 points. My opponent, he ends up beating me by less than 1 point. And my kicker, once again, screwed me in the Game of Thrones League.
It's my favorite thing to hear. It's my favorite thing to hear that a kicker gotcha. Because when we initially drafted, and this was 7 years ago, I wasn't quite as into fantasy football as you were then. I was just in a couple of redraft leagues, no dynasty yet. And I took a kicker, I believe it was like the 16th or 17th round. And I remember you and another physical therapist I worked with, Zach, just absolutely dogged on me about taking a kicker so early. And then I think I took another kicker towards the end of the round. And then you made fun of me even more. So the fact
You end up
that
getting like 3 kickers in the rookie draft or in the primary starting draft.
I had just texted you. I texted you and I was like, oh man, I think I'm just going to take a bunch of kickers. And you're like, please don't do that. And the kicker just comes around to bite you in the butt. Oh, it's just music to my ears. Poetic justice right there.
And it feels like it's been year after year. And it's not just any kicker, Colton. It seems that each year for the last 4 years, I think, I've had either the number 1 or the number 2 kicker, and I filter through these kickers because when they give me a 0 and I lose the finals, I don't know how much I want to keep that kicker on my roster or for how much longer. So then I drop them, find another kicker, and they end up being the number 1 or the number 2 kicker overall in the whole league throughout the whole regular season. And then they dud on me in the semifinals or the finals. And you know what I've learned from this, Colton?
What?
I learned that situations change and you need to learn to adapt. And when you find out that the Texans are losing one of their primary targets in Diggs, when they lose one of their primary targets later on in Tank Dell, and they only have one guy to throw to, and they're going up against a dominant defense and a really good offense, things change. And I made a mistake, and it cost me.
I've had Jake Elliott on my roster since November of 2023. It's got to get those middling ones that just ride the line.
So last episode we had a segment, and it was called "Isn't It Ironic?" And it kind of goes back to me losing by less than a point. Well, there's karma that goes into this also, because in my superheroes league, which has been going for 5 years now, in the semifinals, I ended up squeaking by. But let me set this up a little bit more here for you, Colton. Zach, who we just had talked about, I was the number 2 seed 2 weeks prior to the playoffs. And that's when I got matched up with a team that hadn't set a lineup all year, decides to set their lineup, and they beat me. And then the last game of the season, I have to play the number 1 team, which is a juggernaut, got beat, dropped me from the 2nd seed that had a bye to the 3rd seed, and moved Zach up from the 3rd seed to the 2 seed. He got the bye, and not only did he get the bye, but he thanked me for losing that week in order for him to get such bye. Well, I ended up winning the first round of the playoffs, and then I was matched up with Zach. And Zach, he had 2 players that still needed to go on Monday Night Football, and it was Kendre Miller and it was Romeo Dobbs. And he only needed 9.5 points to beat me. I waited until 11 o'clock that night, didn't look at anything, didn't watch anything, and I seen that I had beat him by 0.04 points, Colton. 0.04 points. I didn't message just then and there because God forbid a stat correction would have been made, and then I'd just have I just have it in my face at that time. At that point, I waited until the next morning, not just the morning. I waited until like late morning to see if this still stand. And sure enough, it did. And I basically said, Christmas miracles do happen. I hope everyone has a magical Christmas.
I thought you were going to talk about sweet karma of me talking up Dalton Kincaid, me trading my first round pick for him, and that pick ended up being the 101. I thought that's what you were referring to. That's in Game of Thrones.
Oh my, no, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? I thought that's the karma you were about to throw at me. I'm like, oh.
Oh, well, we're going to talk about Dalton Kincaid here in just a second. But in the finals in that league, I got destroyed by the number 1 juggernaut. But the ironic part was I ended up beating a team in the semifinals by less than a point. I ended up losing in the finals in another league by less than a point. And it's like, things balance out. It's like Jerry Seinfeld. He loses a $20 bill, he throws it out the window, and he finds one in his pocket.
I'm not as big a Seinfeld expert as you.
Yeah. For all you Seinfeld fans out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, Colton, you had brought up about Kincaid.
No, I knew it was coming.
What do you think about Dalton Kincaid at this time? Now that he's now finishing his sophomore season.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it early, huh? Dalton Kincaid.
With no competition, mind you. With no competition for targets.
There was so much potential in that man. Looked good his rookie year. Thought he was going to make the second year jump, and absolutely fell on his face. it's hard to make excuses at this point. The only one I've got left in my back pocket is tight ends do take a little bit of time, but he was meant to be a receiving tight end anyways, and he doesn't do a lot of the blocking work. Whereas that's Dawson Knox, who is eating into a bunch of snaps and some of Dalton Kincaid's target because he is available to block. And so he gets a lot of those, quick little, I'm blocking here for a second. Oh, crap, Allen's in trouble. I fade out to the side. I get a nice little dump off and then get 10, 15 yards. So, he's still a fine middling tight end that you can play as a matchup play, kind of a streamer.
Did you know when to play him, though? Did you know when to play Dalton Kincaid?
There
As
is
somebody that would own Dalton Kincaid yourself, not me, would you know when to play him?
that was the problem with the tight end field at all this year, though. You had a very small handful of tight ends that you were like, oh, I can plug this guy in every single week. Brock Bowers, awesome. Trey McBride, awesome. Mark Andrews, after he got over his weird beginning season hump, you could plug in. But after that, you tell me who you were confident plugging in and week out. Cade Otton had a couple weeks run, then fell off the face of the earth. Yeah, so it was a tough season for tight ends. George Kittle was very,
Conqua at the end, Kraft, Hunter Henry.
But it was just an up and down season for tight ends, anyways. So it was a big streaming year for tight ends. But the fact that Dalton
Smith was the mystery box tight end that really won you leagues.
Yeah, just that one. So he really he just kind of fell into that middling tight end category for me here. Just the one that's nothing but a streamer. And you look at his matchup and you kind of determined based off of that. Currently I have Dalton Kincaid at my tight end 7. So tight end 7, which is not good for, someone that's just finished their second year. If it wasn't for such a piss poor performance across the board against all tight ends, Kyle Pitts fell off the face of the earth. You got Travis Kelce and dynasty wise starting to age out. So, I couldn't put him above him. Evan Ingram, David Njoku, those guys were up and down, we saw, and they're both starting to get up there in age as well. So, it's hard to put them any lower, but it's hard to be confident. And I think outside of those top 5 or 6, you just have a streaming tight end. You don't have I can play him every week tight end. So that's my unfortunate truth that I've had to come to terms with this season.
So Dalton Kincaid, he had peaked prior to the season, and he's in a free fall at this time. I have famously said multiple times that Kincaid is Trey Burton, but I'm mistaken in this premise because the differences between Kincaid and Trey Burton?
If you're about to tell me Trey Burton did better his second year, I'm going to cry.
Well, we'd have to look back at the stats, but what I was going to say is when there's no target competition, Trey Burton delivered. And Kincaid did not.
Kincaid did not deliver anything. It was most certainly a definitely odd season for the Buffalo Bills as well. There was not a whole lot of receivers that you could look at on there and say, this is the guy. We saw a star like Amari Cooper. What?
Shakir.
Oh, Khalil Shakir. He was a PPR target. He was going to get the ball thrown his way
15 points a week.
Right. He was about the only one, but he was getting just dink and dunk kind of yardage anyways. He wasn't like, he was kind of getting manufactured touches. But outside of Shakir, there was no one that was like, yeah, this is the stud. Amari Cooper comes there, doesn't do anything. Keon Coleman would catch a contested ball here and there and have a decent game. Dawson Knox was catching passes here and there. Mac Hollins was a go-to guy every now. It was just Josh Allen was kind of pulling the Patrick Mahomes, and he was throwing to whoever the heck he wanted to. He wasn't out there going, this is my star. This is who I'm going to target. He was out there going, this guy's open, bing, and just playing on some all-star awesome football, which is what you want to see. But at the same time, that's not what you want to see for your fantasy football team. You want to see the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, where I've got 2 guys, and these are the only 2 guys I'm throwing it to. So Josh Allen just did a good job of distributing, and unfortunately, when you have 7 guys, you have no guys in fantasy.
Well, which takes me to the Wizarding World, where I had the number 1 seed, and I ended up using the port key to move off of a team that had Josh Allen. He was ranked as the 4th seed, and I ended up challenging using the port key to move to pick the number 1 seed to play whichever team that still remained. I ended up choosing the number 2 seed to play against. Happened to be maybe the wrong answer at the time, but in the long scheme in the finals, that team would have beat me in the finals. But because I had did the port key and competed against the team that had Patrick Mahomes and Bryce Young instead of the Josh Allen team, which I would have beat, I wouldn't have beat the team that I ended up port keying to. And Josh Allen at that time, the week before, he ended up having a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a passing touchdown in one game. And I'm sorry, but that unicorn scared the life out of me, and I didn't want to play against him in the Wizarding World. Too much magic in that guy.
Yeah, I don't want to face Josh Allen in anything anymore. I had one share of Josh Allen in an orphan team I took over. It was just like a team for like I'm trying to flip for a buddy as best I can so he can sell it off to someone else. And I had Josh Allen, and someone was like, "Here's 3 firsts, Trevor Lawrence, and like a second or something." And I was like, "Sure, whatever. Like I need anything to get anything on this team." And I'm like, "Man, I should have asked for more. I should have got more." Like,
Thought you were going to say that you would have needed more in order to move off of him, and
well,
you
no,
accepted
I
it.
accepted it because it was still early season. But I was just like, man, I should have asked for more.
Well, and to be fair, at the beginning of the season, the Buffalo Bills offense was really weird and
Odd.
wonky, and they really
Yeah.
weren't scoring a lot of points, but they were squeaking by.
Hmm.
So he really started to develop there in the middle part of the season and really showed that he is the quarterback 1 in Dynasty
Yeah, he is the guy. He is that guy.
for another year.
Yeah, he's that guy, man.
Um, why don't we just stick with the rookie talk here? And why don't we go to your guy, Marvin Harrison Jr.? We had talked a little bit prior to streaming here. Can you just share? Are you having some concerns about Marvin Harrison? Are you pleased with what you've seen in him? What's some of your takes for your guy, Marvin Harrison?
So I'm gonna start out. I'm gonna start out strong. Kind of the topic I told you I was gonna bring up here, and a lot of people are concerned of Marvin Harrison. A lot of times he was the 101. People are super nervous because he didn't deliver. I mean, he was coming off the draft boards and redraft, end of first round, beginning of second. People had high expectations, high hopes, everything for Marvin Harrison to come in and be an absolute stud at the beginning. It just didn't happen, obviously. We saw him kind of be a roller coaster of emotions. And it was just up, down, and towards the end, it was really down. And my big excuse, and I don't know if it's really an excuse or what, but Kyler Murray sucks. Kyler Murray cannot read a field in 50% of his games. And then he comes back the next game and looks good. And then goes back the following 2 games and just looks like he hasn't looked at an NFL field in years. Like, I don't know what was going on. And a lot of like the other podcasts I have listened to as well were saying the same thing. They're like, what is happening with Kyler Murray? Like, what is going on? Like, he is up, down. He doesn't know his left from his right. Holy crap, Kyler Murray looked awesome. They couldn't get the connection down. There were so many plays that it was like Marvin Harrison, they do the nice little back shoulder fade in the end zone. I mean, you could tack on at least 8 more touchdowns on the Marvin Harrison's like scoreboard here if Kyler Murray could just connect that ball with him. They went to it. They were trying to make that connection. And it seemed like every single time it was like Kyler Murray threw it just a little too up ahead. Like, he is a big dude. How are you missing? Like, he's like 6 inches taller than any defender pretty much guarding him. Just get it up to where he can catch it. And Kyler Murray just kept missing. I mean, I know Marvin Harrison, he should catch some of the balls. He had a couple of ugly drops as well. I'm not making all the excuses in the world that it's just solely Kyler Murray, but those are some rookie mistakes that we are going to see out of rookies as they are still getting acquainted to the NFL field. Like we saw Malik Neighbors have the amazing seasons he's had, the amazing season Brian Thomas Jr. has had. We've seen them all make their rookie mistakes. That happens. That's not what I'm concerned about. The other concerning part is Kyler Murray's here to stay. They just signed him to an extension. So Marvin Harrison is stuck here. Him and Trey McBride are still the only two. I mean, we've seen Trey McBride be the absolute monster. But also, my other thing is, and I didn't bring this up prior to the podcast, what is this offense Arizona is running? They are not getting the hands into the ball of Marvin Harrison Jr. easily. If they would just run a couple of easy plays to get the balls into his playmakers, like Trey McBride's getting all these little short yardage, middle of the field kind of passes where he's able to make stuff happen. Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, I need to go and look at his ADOT, his average depth of target, because I guarantee it's way too big.
I've got it right here for you.
What is it?
Okay, so first off, let's talk about 50% catch rate. Some of it's Marvin Harrison and some of it's Kyler.
Right.
Okay. Out of 110 targets, 57 receptions, 822 yards. Yards per reception, 14.4, which is great, or good at least. Air yards, this is something that, again, you need to go to playerprofiler.com, look up some of these stats. If you're having some concerns about players that you thought were going to hit, is there explanations to why they didn't hit or why they did hit? And this is one of the reasons why you can still keep your candle lit there, Colton, for Marvin Harrison. Air yards, 1,496 yards.
Oh,
Do you know where that stands?
I mean, that's got to
be number 4 in the league.
I was going to say at least top 10. Oh, man.
Air yards share, he had a 43 percentile, number 5 in the league. Deep targets, he had 26 deep targets, number 5 in the league. So, again, unrealized air yards, actual realized air yards. I mean, he's top 5 in all these categories. And so do you think this is a guy and a 32% dominator rating as far as percentage, 13th in the league? So if we're throwing some of these stats out at you, target rate per man, 36%, number 3 in the league. Win rate versus man, number 5 in the league. This is with Kyler Murray and with 50% basically dropping the ball. He is still dominating air yards. He's still dominating targets. And, things are going to change. Things are going to improve. At least we suspect. This is a guy to go out and buy in Dynasty, especially as we go into the offseason. People are going to think of, wow, I was really disappointed in Marvin Harrison. Maybe I need to move him and maybe get a different asset. Maybe I can move an Olave that maybe Olave plus and get a Marvin Harrison on your roster. I think that could happen, right? Who would you rather have?
I mean, I would rather have Marvin Harrison.
Well, especially with all the concussions that this poor kid had, and at least you know who his quarterback is, who's going to be the quarterback for the Saints, for heaven's sakes. But Olave is a buy too. Don't get me wrong, Olave is a buy, but Marvin Harrison Jr., he's definitely a buy. And these are things I'd like to talk about in the offseason. Like, what sort of trades are you trying to send out there to get Marvin Harrison? What would you pay right now for Marvin Harrison? Late first?
Oh, I would definitely give that up. I mean, I think you're going to have to ask more because people that
teams are going to be able to want to get off him at like a mid first. If you had like a 105, do you think that would move him?
I think as we get closer to the rookie,
once we get closer to the draft,
once we get closer to this rookie draft, I think we're going to see, because we're going to be talking about all these running backs. People love running backs in fantasy football. So I mean, if you're okay on running backs, absolutely. I mean, I'd be willing to move off, especially with how big this running back class is. You might still be able to get some solid running backs at the beginning, like the early second and whatnot. So the moving on from a a mid first for Marvin Harrison. I still hold him high up there. Is he going to be what we always thought him to be? He was very hyped up, and I think we talked about this last year. We said that there's no going up from where he was at. There was only going down. So where you were buying him was the highest. I mean, he was coming off of rookie boards or new leagues, like brand new leagues. He was coming off the early second round. Wide receiver 4 or 5, maybe even higher.
I'm at 112.
Yeah.
I think someone drafted him at 112 or 113 in my startup Superflex Dynasty League.
Yeah, you don't go up from there unless you have like the greatest rookie season of all time, and even then you're still kind of probably just sitting there because you're probably still not taking him over Chase and all that. So I mean, the fact that you bought him at his highest peak of where he was at and where he's dropped to now, I absolutely think he's a buy. He still might have his ups and downs with Kyler Murray still sitting there in Arizona. Hopefully they move on from this offensive coordinator too, because I did not like what they were running there in Arizona. I mean, it was just like I said, they weren't getting the ball to him in any amount of short yardage to let him just do something. Now McBride was getting that. I mean, McBride was like he had
McBride and James Conner, they were the offense.
They were getting those short little things and just letting them kind of do whatever. But I mean, Marvin Harrison he had a tough time getting to the ball. It was a bunch of like, he's good at jump ball and contested catches. Let's do that every time. Like, can we just get him the ball? Like, he's very good.
Literally had a 50-50 ball every time. And guess what? He caught it about 50% of the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, my hopes are not dead on him. I don't hold him to where he is at the beginning of the season. A lot of people had him way up there. Like some people had him above Amon-Ra. No, never would I have done that. So the fact that, I probably hold him now to where everyone else has him.
I wasn't on Marvin Harrison at the value or the cost. I might be on him this offseason as we go into next year, as we go into some of these rookie drafts. As I said, this class is fine. It's fine at wide receiver. A lot bigger running back class, a lot better tight end class. And if you have that pretty much met and you're looking for a wide receiver in Harrison, I mean, you could do a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get him, if someone's taking him, I'd be willing to throw mid first plus a second, if not, something else. But I mean, that's absolutely what I would throw just to get him, because this wide receiver class, if you're hoping to get a wide receiver at the mid first, no, you're not getting a quality. The best one that they're talking about right now, and I've done a little bit of dive on him, is Tet McMillan. And he's like Drake London 2.0. So he could pan out and be okay. But at the same time, I mean, we still haven't seen him on an NFL field. We can see that Marvin Harrison has at least been on the field and had flashes of being good.
Well, I think he's definitely going to be King Tet in Dynasty at the wide receiver position for the rookie drafts, but we'll get to that at a little later point. We kept talking about Kyler Murray and how bad his play has been. I made a huge mistake with the Medusa League. I ended up drafting late first. I ended up going with Anthony Richardson, and then on the turn, I ended up getting Kyler Murray. So my cornerstone pieces at the quarterback position were not too great, but later on I did get Joe Flacco, which he didn't seem to have the magic in him this year like he did last. Not good, Colton. Not good.
We don't need to talk about Anthony Richardson, do we?
Well, what was one of the things you said about Anthony Richardson at the start of the season here, Colton?
We're not talking about what happened. Anthony Richardson was not the quarterback one overall. He's not
Spoiler alert.
Not even the number one quarterback on the Colts. Man.
Go ahead. Did you have anything more to say about Anthony Richardson?
I did. And I was talking about this with one of my buddies just yesterday. And Anthony Richardson possesses all of the athleticism in the world to be the best quarterback in the league. All of it. His arm, he's so strong. He can run. He can move. He just can't think. Oh my God. He cannot process, cannot do it, cannot think. And I think the game is just moving too quickly in the NFL for him to ever be a good quarterback. So if you have him, and there are still people that believe in him, now is the time to get him off your team, especially with such a weak rookie quarterback class coming in. Move him for whatever you can. Do not buy. Don't buy for a second. Even if someone's offering up a second. I don't. I do not think he's going to be the
Thanks,
starting quarterback
Colton.
after next year.
Colton is way off.
I don't think he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts after next year.
He lost the locker room not once but twice this
3
season.
times. Yeah. And I think his little injury at the end of the year here was not a true injury. I think they're like, well, we can possibly make the playoffs if we win. Let's play Flacco. And they unfortunately lost in the worst way possible of letting the Giants put up 40-something points on them, which is miserable
Well,
in
they
itself.
both lost that game, Colton.
But
Both lost that game.
yeah, but I do not think that Anthony Richardson is going to be the future of this franchise. Maybe if you want to hang on to him as a tight end, because he's athletic, he can run the ball. I mean, a Taysom Hill like character, I think he's got that in him. But a quarterback in the NFL is not in his future, unfortunately. Springs.
We got to talk a little bit about that turnaround there with the Giants beating the Colts. Not so much the game itself, but the Giants actually winning this game handily and moving back in the draft. I think 3 spots. Didn't they move back from the number 1 overall pick to like the number 4 spot?
Yes. Gave it up to the Raiders, and then I think the Jets.
The Raiders ended up winning, didn't they?
Oh yeah, so Patriots are 1.
The Raiders
are
won
2.
also and screwed the pooch. And now the Patriots are sitting at the 101 for the NFL draft for this coming season. Unbelievable.
Craziness. They're going to sell that thing.
Oh, they have to get a Godfather offer like the Bears did and
They will.
Just get everything.
They absolutely are going to sell that. They don't need a quarterback. So they're going to move back. Drake May looks good. So him
Are the Giants going to make a mistake and sell the farm to try and get the number 1 overall pick? I think so too. Yeah. Either that or they get Sam Darnold.
I think we have a conversation about your boy Sam Darnold's coming back to Minnesota, my friend.
Do we want to talk about this right now, Colton?
We might as well. Let's get into
it. Okay. Tell me your take and I'll tell you mine.
So I don't see, dependent on what happens here in the near future, I think if Sam Darnold takes the Vikings deep into the playoffs, if not, the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl, if that happens, there's no way they move off of him. You either sign that man to a long-term deal, franchise tag him or whatever, but I think they run it back. I mean, Sam Darnold is able to carry this team. And I've heard it's just rumors absolutely on Twitter, but the fact that there's rumors of people sniffing around trying to buy JJ McCarthy off of the Vikings, I mean, it's a real possibility. Like with this quarterback, like we keep saying, this quarterback class is weak coming out of college. JJ McCarthy has shown that he could play well out of college. He probably would be the number 1 prospect if in this draft class, if he was in it. So, I mean, the fact that someone could trade something away to get JJ McCarthy, Vikings would then bolster their roster even more with getting probably a first, if not a little bit more out of it, and have Sam Darnold. I mean, that's the answer. If Sam Darnold can get it done, which he's shown he has all year, now what he does in this playoffs, I think, is really what's going to be the final key and answer for what it holds for the Minnesota Vikings.
So first, I'm going to go with the trade speculation. The latest trade speculation I saw for JJ McCarthy was actually with the Jets, and the Jets were going to pay like a 1st-round pick and like 2 fourths or something like that, which is ironic because we paid a 3rd to move up 1 spot to get JJ McCarthy from the Jets. So there's a little irony there. I don't think it happens. This is what I think happens, and this is my counterpoint. if we look back in 2017, and I remember this year very, very strongly,
Case Keenum.
as we had made it to the NFC Championship with a third string quarterback in Case Keenum coming off of the Minnesota Miracle. And after we had made it that far, this is where all the talk had come. If we'd only have a quarterback, if only we'd have a quarterback, we could have made that next jump. And then we ended up overpaying for Kirk Cousins. We let Case Keenum walk. He ended up going to the Browns with Kevin Stefanski. And the rest is history. We ended up spending millions and 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 millions of dollars for Kirk Cousins to come and win us one playoff game in 5 or 6 years. And now he's moved on, and now he had that same kind of curse there with the Falcons. $120 million goes to the Falcons. They draft a first-round quarterback, 8th pick overall in Penix, and he recently got benched, and we don't need to get into that because that'll take us into another soapbox. But going back to Sam Darnold and what the Minnesota Vikings are going to do, regardless of how deep we end up going into the playoffs, and please, God, please help us get a Super Bowl win, even with Sam Darnold. How awesome would that be? I think what happens is Sam Darnold finds a $80 to $100 million deal with another organization because there's so many teams that are quarterback needy, like the Raiders, like the Giants, amongst others.
The Titans.
He's not going back to the Jets. Okay. The 49ers are now talking speculation about, is Purdy the guy? Is he not the guy? The Titans are looking for a quarterback. Again, there's countless numbers of teams that need quarterbacks, and this quarterback class is really poopy. So he's easily going to make $80 to $100 million. I think it's closer to $100 million contract. The Vikings are not going to pay that. You know what they're going to do, Colton? They have a guy on our practice squad, and his name is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is going to get offered a 1-year, $10 million contract, the same contract that the Vikings offered and gave to Sam Darnold. And the Vikings can say to Daniel Jones, look what we did to Sam Darnold's career trajectory. We completely boosted him from one of the biggest busts in NFL history to now one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And oh, by the way, we got J.J. McCarthy that'll sit behind you, and when we think he's ready, which I don't think he'll ever be ready, he'll be the next guy up. Now, do I think that's the best option for the Vikings? No, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Man, you just have no faith. Kind of like us Colts fans who I say Anthony Richardson's doo-doo.
We've been talking a lot of irony here, and what's really ironic is 2 years ago, the Vikings ended up playing the Giants in the wild card matchup. We ended up getting beat by the Giants. It set both franchises back 2 years. The Minnesota Vikings haven't been back to the playoffs since, and the Giants, they signed Daniel Jones to a huge contract after he had won that game, and now he's been let go by the Giants, and now he's walked on to the Vikings practice squad, and he will be our future quarterback next season.
For your sanity and possibly my dad's, I hope that is not what happens. But that's the most. My dad. We did talk about it. The fact that
we'll have a line finally.
We talked about the Case Keenum thing, and he was like, they don't care. The Case Keenum took us to the NFC Championship, and they just said, bye-bye, we need Kirk Cousins. I was like, I did forget. They did.
It was a huge mistake.
Different GM, though, right?
Teddy and Case Keenum, and they could have been our quarterbacks at a much lower cost. We could have kept our offensive line. We could have paid our defense, which was also top 3 in the league. Once we paid for Cousins, our defense went down to the bottom 5 in the league for multiple years. They were a laughingstock along with our offensive line, and they wondered why Kirk Cousins couldn't get it done. He didn't have a defense to lean on, and he didn't have an offensive line to protect him.
I was going to say that is one argument for keeping J.J. McCarthy around. I mean, having the rookie contract that's 1 year off of it, but still 4 more years on a rookie contract definitely helps build up a team.
Remember, he's a winner, Colton. He's a winner. And he needed time to develop also, if you didn't forget. Now he's had a whole lost year season, and now he's got to be able to sit behind the number 1 quarterback, which is not J.J. McCarthy. So we need to have a veteran in front of him, at least for half the season, if not more. And that's what the plan was for Sam Darnold this year. And I think that's what the plan is going into 2025.
Franchise tag Darnold.
Uh, the franchise tag is still like, isn't it like $45 million? I don't think
Yeah,
the
it might
Vikings
be.
want to pay $45 million for Sam Darnold to sit, um, to play for the Minnesota Vikings for another year. That's a tough one.
I
I
don't
don't see
know.
it happening though.
If he brings home the Lombardi to Minnesota, I think Minnesota would have an uprising if they let him walk.
Let's
That's
bring home that Lombardi trophy first,
that's
and
one
then we can have the
state.
discussion.
That is one state that is hardcore on their football, man. When I went to that stadium, they mean business. Very friendly people, but they mean business.
Sam Darnold, the first quarterback in NFL history for the first time with a team to be 14-2, I think is what I read.
Good for him. Way to change his whole entire career around in 1 year. Good for him.
And his touchdowns and passing stats for the first time with a team, he's up there with some of the greats. I think right now he's like the third or fourth spot, and
He's,
we still have another game to go,
he's playing out of
which is
his
hard to
mind.
compare because it's an added game this year.
Yeah,
But
he's playing out of his
I
mind.
digress. Unless you want to talk about the Eric Dickerson record that's not going to be broke this week by Saquon Barkley.
Oh, the one that is going to be. Well, it's not because he said he's going to
It's
sit.
not because he's going to sit. And again, there's all this talk, and I'm one with it. You keep adding more games to these NFL seasons. Eventually, these records are going to get broken because they're not really the same record. I
Right.
mean, you're comparing apples to oranges here. Any last things you'd like to bring up here, Colton? What would you like to see this show develop into over the next few months as we get closer to rookie season?
Yeah, so we're starting to get into my favorite part of fantasy football, and because it just becomes absolute madness here. I'm going to start breaking down a lot of my rookie tapes. I'm going to really start getting some of that rookie content out here and kind of watching film, looking at the stats, breaking everything down as the combine comes to us and everyone starts declaring. And it's getting to my favorite part, not to mention my absolute new favorite week over the last few years, and that's free agency week. I love it, just the madness. Um, so I mean, just tune in, make sure you're getting a leg up on all of your league mates and stay active. That's the biggest thing with dynasty football. If you need a couple weeks off, at the end of the season here, take from now until the Super Bowl away from fantasy if you want. But as soon as the Super Bowl is over is when I really start deep diving back into it. Remain active, keep those trades going, and tune in to listen up on all these rookies, and we'll be breaking them down for you here shortly. And I'd like to think that we'll be getting better about with what we do as we're coming into another season and breaking these rookies down and kind of telling you guys who to avoid and who to kind of prioritize here. So hopefully we'll learn along the way with you guys because this is only getting into our second season here of doing this, but hopefully we can give you all a leg up.
Yep. And I want to keep going forward here, but I got to say this first because you just said leg up, not once, but twice. But yes, we want to give you a leg up, but we don't want to give you a legette.
That's a good one, Dad.
And which takes me into like some things I'd like to get into as we go into the off season. I'd like to look back at some of our rookie drafts from this past season and see the players that we had drafted. Why did we draft those players? And was it good process, or did we make any mistakes along the way? And how can we learn from those mistakes as we go into the 2025 rookie draft? I'm really excited about the free agency, as you said. I'm really excited about the rookies that are coming out. I love the combine. It's mixing two of my favorite sports. It's mixing football and track and field. And Colton, this year I'm planning on going to Indianapolis to the combine. And I keep looking over and seeing how to get tickets. And right now they haven't dispersed them yet, but it's supposedly free to get into the combine. And if there's any inkling that you would like to join me, we can figure that out together off air here. What do you think about that?
That would be awesome. That would be
Yeah.
those are my two favorite sports, as you know.
Yeah. So, as you know, it's an Indy, so home field advantage for you,
Yeah.
right?
They keep trying to take it away
With your
from us,
Colts.
though. Makes me
I
upset.
was just gonna say there's been a
Could be
lot
the
of
last
talk
year in
about the
Indy.
combine moving to California or moving to Texas potentially after this year.
Hmm.
So I told wifey, I'm like, I got to go to the combine this year. It's something I've always wanted to go to, and why not go to it when it's this close?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a short little 3-hour drive for us now.
Yep.
In the future, it'd
And
be a short little 3-hour flight.
I don't know where we'd stay. I do have a friend that lives out that area, but whether they don't really know anything about me potentially going out that way or not, but I'll probably hit them up and see how that works out. Otherwise, we just figure out a hotel or something.
Yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
not
That'd
not
be
too
great.
worried.
Boots
A
on the
couple other
ground
things.
work.
Boots on the ground work. Maybe we can get some people to talk about our pod while we're out there, or promote our pod, listen to our pod. So I think that'd be pretty cool. I'd like to see if we can start putting a little bit more content or starting to put some content on YouTube. Maybe we can get a few more viewers that way. I am doing a live stream tomorrow. It's in regards to my Medusa League, and that league is a really interesting league. We have 12 people that are playing in the league, and the whole concept of this league is that it's Medusa's labyrinth. So we've got 12 fantasy managers that are walking in this labyrinth. They get trapped by Medusa. We enter the middle part of this labyrinth, and we find that we're in a godly like football stadium or field, and we've got to play against our other fantasy managers along with playing against Medusa, which is the league median. And at the end of the season, we've got to figure out who of the 12 teams or fantasy managers was Medusa when it's all said and done. And if it ends up being the winner of the fantasy football league, so the number one seeded team, if they ended up winning it all and they're Medusa, then they get first place, second place, and third place prize winnings, plus the 113 rookie draft pick. But if it's anybody other than the number one team that had won the league, then they get the 113 pick, and first place gets their money, second place gets their money, and third place gets their money. So it's an interesting concept. And how we're figuring out who Medusa is we're using Super Smash Bros. The number one team got to pick who their character was, and then the last person got to pick the last pick to see who their Smash Bro player is, and we're playing it in attorney style, and that's how we're going to figure out who Medusa is. So we're going to live stream that tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning Central Standard Time on YouTube at FF Healers.
Oh, we got a YouTube channel now. Ooh,
So we've got some things coming to you. We're really excited in this off season, and we're just going to continue to develop as content creators. And we're really happy to see you back here, Colton. Thank you for joining us and making it back here to Illinois as well.
Hey, I'm glad to be back, and I'm just itching to do some in-person stuff. So we'll have to get that going here shortly.
All right, everybody, keep a leg up on your competition and not that legette. And this is the Fantasy Football Healers, and we're out.
Salud.